So I just want to clarify a few things concerning Electric Universe. Hi, Celeste. This is going to be a little bit advanced, so hang on. I typed into Google, do stars evolve in Electric Universe? And they don't outright say stars don't evolve, but yeah, they don't think that stars evolve, and I'll go ahead and read this out. It says here, the answer in an electric universe is simple. The electric currents that form stars do not dissipate after giving birth to the star. The luminosity of the star is not related to its massiveness because no nuclear fusion is taking place in its heavy element core. Let's just unpack that for a second. They say that the electric current that forms a star, the electromagnetic event that the star formed out of, doesn't dissipate after the star is born. So they believe that this star stays bright right after it's born, meaning it doesn't evolve. It stays that way right after it's born. So it acts like a node in a large circuit. Unfortunately, I don't think that's correct. After the star is born, a good analogy for it is like a baby being born, the umbilical cord is cut. After the star is born, after really violent electromagnetic events were taking place to birth the star, after a given amount of time, and after certain physical parameters are met, the star then becomes independent structure and then evolves on its own time scale, inside of its own life, its own evolutionary future, if you will. So yeah, stars are independent structures, and that's something Electric Universe doesn't believe, as well as stars do evolve. And we know they evolve because we see highly evolved stars. And Electric Universe and mainstream science call them planets. So that's a very big problem. They also have here the luminosity of a star is not related to its massiveness because no nuclear fusion is taking place in its heavy element core. Well, that's half correct. No nuclear fusion is taking place in stars. Anybody that's been around and studied astrophysics knows that even the astrophysicists don't believe that fusion is taking place inside of stars. That's why they invented the what's that called? Quantum tunneling. It's where atoms they can overcome their Coulomb barrier because the temperatures and energies are not high enough inside of stars to form heavy elements. So they just invented quantum tunneling to get over that fact. So they actually don't even believe in fusion taking place in stars, and that's a very little known fact. And if you dig into the astrophysics books, you'll see that, but they don't, talk about it too much. Secondly, the luminosity of a star is not related to its massiveness. It actually is. What actually happens is the stronger the gravitational field that the star has, the stronger it can pull matter in and accelerate it past its critical ionization velocity. Meaning if you have a neutral particle, you're pulling it into the sun at 28 Gs, meaning it's going to easily reach far beyond its critical ionization velocity. And critical ionization velocity means if you accelerate a particle to a certain velocity, it will become ionized. And those velocities can be reached easily when you have a large, very strong gravitational field accelerating matter back into the star. And that's why there are convective currents inside the sun. Remember, just recently they had a picture taken, or time-lapse taken of the sun's convective granulation. That's what's happening. Material is falling back into the sun and it's coming right back up again. It's a feedback loop. Basically what happens is the sun is so large, it's so huge, that the material it's made out of is both simultaneously falling back into the sun and being ejected back out again because it's trying to lose its mass. It's trying to become smaller and come into equilibrium with outer space. And outer space is what, 2 Kelvin, 3 Kelvin? You have a 6,000 degree Kelvin object directly against a near 0 Kelvin outer space. Of course it's gonna try to remove all its heat. And it's trying to do that in the most efficient way possible. That being said, that's how we know that the stars do evolve, is because they're losing heat. They're losing their mass, they're losing their heat. And we also know that they evolve because we see how they evolve stars. So, electric universe, I think the only thing they have here is that stellar birth is a very powerful electromagnetic event. And that nuclear fusion isn't taking place in the center, of course. Those are two things they have right. But the luminosity of a star is related to its massiveness, because as a star loses mass, it loses the strength of its gravitational field. So it can't get that hydrogen past its critical ionization velocity. It can't accelerate it fast enough. So obviously the star will start dimming and dimming and dimming, and we see that in brown dwarfs, or start dimming in orange dwarfs after the sun stage, and then red dwarfs after the orange dwarf stage, and into brown dwarfs after the red dwarf stage. Because as that mass is lost, that gravitational field is too weak. It can't get that hydrogen accelerated back into the star fast enough to ionize it. And after it's ionized, then it recombines, and the recombination process is what releases the heat. Plasma recombination is when plasma goes to gas, and that reaction is exothermic, meaning it's heat releasing. So the light that the star produces is right where you see it, right on the surface. It's not coming from some fictional process in the center of it that the Poindexters of establishment invented. But that's it basically with that. As well, EU and both the establishment both believe that all stars shine. They don't believe that stars cool and collapse over many hundreds of millions of years. Both the electric universe and the mainstream dogma have no interest in phase transitions, meaning the very process that keeps young stars hot and bright is completely ignored by both the dogma and the electric universe, which is plasma recombination. It's when the plasma becomes the gas. And we know that's the main process that releases all the heat and what makes stars hot and bright. It's because when we see the more evolved stars, they're mostly gas. And if you see the young stars, they're mostly plasma. So what do you have here? You have the majority of the plasma becoming gas. And how do you get that plasma to become gas? You have to get the heat removed from it. And how do you get the heat removed? Plasma recombination. Most of the plasma recombination processes happen during right here. And then you have gas condensation into liquid and solid material right here. Eventually that liquid material solidifies, and it's just basic phase transitions. EU doesn't like to talk about phase transitions, and neither does the dogma. And finally, last but not least, we know the models of both electric universe and the dogma are incorrect, because if their models were correct, they would have been able to predict what the sun's going to look like 700 million years from now. It's going to look like Jupiter. Or what the sun's going to look like 1.1 billion years from now. It's going to look like Neptune. Or what the sun's going to look like 4.5 billion years from now. It's the Earth. They would have been able to make the connection in their super advanced models if they were actually correct that the sun is not going to look like what it is today. It's not going to expand into some obtuse red giant. It's not going to explode. It's going to slowly cool, shrink, and collapse upon itself, as it's been doing since it was in its blue giant phases of evolution. And we know this is what's going to happen to them because we're finding thousands of objects in various stages of this process. Something that hasn't really been done before. It's only recently we started finding star systems that have a whole bunch of different stars in different stages of evolution. Anyways, that's this talk. Hopefully people can understand that EU is heart is in the right place, but they have a lot of issues that they need to correct. All right, guys, later.